What if the Vietnam War never happened? How would this change every election? 1964 U.S. election. Henry Cabot Lodge Jr. vs. Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson wins re-election in a landslide, despite the fact that he lost all former Confederate states, including his own state of Texas, to Cabot Lodge. Lyndon B. Johnson's first term without the Vietnam War. Without the Vietnam War, Johnson has a good term. He focuses on expanding civil rights and railroad and monopoly companies. Although his first term was very popular, his health started to become an issue in the 1968 campaign. 1968 U.S. election, Lyndon B. Johnson vs. George Romney. Lyndon B. Johnson wins re-election in a landslide with 385 electoral votes. Johnson's second term. Johnson's second term goes great. Without the Vietnam War, he does all kinds of stuff throughout the country, including expanding child care and health care, and doubling the size of the country for $10 million. Overall, though, he dies 2 days after leaving office, like in real life. 1972 U.S. election, George Romney vs. Hubert Humphrey. George Romney wins the 1958 U.S. election with 298 electoral votes. George Romney's first term. George Romney would probably appoint like Secretary of State Richard Nixon, Secretary of Defense Henry Cabot Lodge Jr., Secretary of the Interior. Perhaps someone someone like Spiro Agnew. His first term focuses on expanding child labor rights. 1976 U.S. election, George Romney vs. Edmund Muskie. George Romney wins re-election in the 1976 U.S. election, winning in a landslide with 500 electoral votes. '80 U.S. election, Ronald Reagan vs. Walter Mondale. Ronald Reagan wins the 1980 election, promising to continue on George Romney's legacy. Reagan was, however, unable to continue Romney's legacy, but he was able to continue some of Romney's policies, so that's good. The economy continues to struggle heading into the 1984 election, but his approval ratings are still above 50%. 1984 U.S. election, Ted Kennedy vs. Ronald Reagan. Ted Kennedy wins the 1984 election with 284 electoral votes. Ted Kennedy's first term. Kennedy would probably appoint someone like Howard Stassen to Secretary of State Defense, Jimmy Carter. Interior, maybe like John F. Kennedy Jr. Ted Kennedy's first term focuses on promising to not raise taxes, and in this timeline, he is a more trusted man than George H.W. Bush, so he remains very popular heading into the election of 88. 1988 U.S. election, Ted Kennedy vs. Howard Stassen. Howard Stassen assures to the Republican nomination in 88 after many suggest him as the front-runner. Ted Kennedy wins re-election with 385 electoral votes. As Stassen's aides concerns people about his health and his age, leading to Stassen losing in a landslide. 1992 U.S. election. Gaylord Hart vs. Bob Dole. Gaylord Hart wins the 1992 election with 281 electoral votes. However, the economy kind of struggles during Hart's first term, but overall, he still remains as a very good president. 1992 U.S. election, Ross Perot vs. Gaylord Hart. Ross Perot wins, and for the first time since Ronald Reagan, the Republicans are back in the White House. Ross Perot would expand child care and education. In 1996, no other Republican challenged Perot, so he gets renominated. The Democrats nominate Al Gore, but however, in this timeline, Al Gore is way too inexperienced. 1996 U.S. election, Ross Perot vs. Al Gore. Al Gore wins re-election, winning Minnesota, New Mexico, and California, and Gore's home state of Tennessee. Heading into the 2000 election, the Republicans would nominate George W. Bush, while the Democrats go with Howard Dean. However, George W. Bush isn't popular in this timeline, as George H. Bush never became president, but it still looks safe for a Republican victory. George W. Bush vs. Howard Dean. George W. Bush wins the election. 9/11 doesn't happen in this timeline. Neither does the Iraq War. 2004 election. George W. Bush vs. Joe Biden. George W. Bush wins re-election in 2004. The 2008 recession happens, blaming it on Bush. 2008 U.S. election. Joe Biden vs. John McCain vs. Hillary Clinton. After losing the Democratic nomination in 2008, Hillary Clinton runs as an independent, splitting the Democratic vote, but it still looks safe for a Democrat victory. 2008 U.S. election, John McCain vs. Joe Biden vs. Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden wins in a landslide with 385 electoral votes. Alternate 2012 U.S. election, Joe Biden vs. Donald Trump. Joe Biden wins re-election with 363 electoral votes. Joe Biden's second term. Throughout his presidency, Joe Biden continues the work that he promised during his campaign. 2016 U.S. election, Mitt Romney vs. John Edwards. Mitt Romney wins the 2016 election, sweeping Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island, and won electoral vote from D.C. Does COVID still happen? COVID does not happen in this timeline. Romney has a good first presidential term. 2020 U.S. election, Mitt Romney vs. Kamala Harris. It's a tough race, but Romney is able to get re-elected with 270 to 268 in the Electoral College. Romney's second term, is it good or bad? Romney's second term is terrible. In this timeline, the Ukraine war only gets worse as Romney doesn't do anything to stop it. And Romney's approval rating drops from 70% all the way down to 29%. Wait, that's low. 2024 U.S. election. Ted Cruz vs. John Edwards. John Edwards wins the 2024 election, despite a scandal against Edwards that involves Edwards cheating on his wife, Elizabeth Edwards, It did damage Edwards' reputation, but Edwards still won the election in a landslide. Edwards' first term, 2025 to 2026. Edwards would expand health care and child care. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have a comment for the next video, put it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.